I sold over $25,000 of Canon gear just to buy Fujifilm. Let's talk about it. So 10 years ago, I bought my very first camera. It was a Nikon D5000. Very quickly, I switched to Canon because I realized that like everyone else was using Canon cameras, and if I had Canon as well, that means I could borrow their gear if I was ever in a pinch or I wanted to try something new. So I bought my first ever Canon camera, and that was the Canon 60D. Very quickly, I then went to the Canon 70, then the 60, then the 5D3, then the 5D4, and then once mirrorless came out, I went to the Canon EOS R, and then R6 and R5C. I have used basically every pro Canon camera that they have come out with. I've used every single pro Canon lens. I've used the Sigma lenses. I've bought the L series Canon lenses, the 16-35, the 28-70. That is hands down the best lens I have ever used. The 51.2, just the bokeh on that thing. Just amazing, but I got bored. I got really, really bored. And then what feels like perfect timing, I stumbled across the X100V, and that camera is single-handedly the most fun camera I've ever bought in my entire life. Like I'm just so thankful for that camera. It's reignited a passion in me that I didn't know that I had. So I thought, if this camera is so good, does Fuji have anything else that could rival my R6? And after a lot of research, I found the XT5, and oh my gosh, this thing is just so good. So I very quickly started my pursuit of selling all of my Canon gear. And now all I have is Fuji cameras and lenses for wedding days. And in my opinion, I'm photographing the best that I ever have. I'm having the most fun that I ever have. Like, I don't know what it is about these cameras. They're just so much fun. There's so much soul to them. And I feel like I can feel that in my photographs, and that translates to what they end up looking like in the end, and my clients get a better end product. This is not to say that Canon cameras aren't good. If anything, like my Canon R6 was definitely far snappier. I could trust the autofocus more. In low light, honestly, it's better than the XT5. There's just a lot of things that it just did so well. Like, Canon builds cameras that are just workhorses, but it just wasn't there for me. Fuji has soul to it. It's breathed life into my creativity, into how I take photos, and I am just so grateful for that. There are two main things that I had to get used to as I switched to Fuji and bought an XT5. The first is that this is an APS-C camera, which means is a crop sensor. And here's a hot take. I don't think that in 2023, crop sensor cameras matter anymore. I just don't think they do. The quality on this thing is phenomenal for photos. The video is actually being shot on this right now, and so I think it's pretty great for video. It's all around just a great experience, so I don't think it matters whether you're on full frame or if you're on an APS-C crop sensor camera. The second thing that you have to get used to is the lenses. Because it's a crop sensor camera, it can get really confusing trying to figure out what lenses you needed and the conversion that you have to do with that. It gets really confusing really quick, but this is a 33mm lens. So this would be the equivalent of a 50mm. And so do you call it a 33? Do you call it a 50? I've heard the debate either way. I'm just gonna call it a 33 since now that all of my stuff is Fuji and it's all crop sensor. So I'll just call it a 33, knowing that if I want the look of a 50, I will use that. The XT5 is not without its downsides. One of the major things that I don't like about it is that it is a little glitchy, which is not great. And sometimes there's also like blackout moments where the camera just like, you'll turn it on, or even if it's on, you press the shutter just like to wake it up, and it takes a few seconds or more to decide whenever it wants to work, which is not the most fun thing when you're doing a wedding and you're trying to get really special moments that you just can't recreate. So like, that's fun. Also, it is a decent amount slower than my Canon R6. Now, that's not necessarily good or bad, it just is. On paper, this might actually look like I did a bit of a downgrade, but I couldn't disagree more. Because it's slower, it allows me actually to think through how I want to photograph moments on a wedding day. The colors are just so nice. Like, I've never been able to get the colors in my camera closer to film than now. Like, I've never liked my photos more. It's just a lovely shooting experience using the Fujifilm X-T5. At the end of the day, it does not matter what camera system you are using. Like the old saying goes, the best camera is the one you have on you. So find some gear that inspires you and use it to the fullest. You'll be so glad you did. I'll see you in the next video.